What I now want to do, and straight away I've gone and, oh, that's it. Right. Let's just see that this is working okay. You should now have a display in front of you. It says how to learn methods.
Yeah.
Excellent, things are working well. I'll say now, you'll notice my details at the bottom there, so if you want to email me separately at the end of this with any questions, then please do. But like everything else that we've been producing for these shows, it's going to be archived on the website, so you'll also be able to retrieve this if you wish to. Now then, let's have a look. Let's get into the show. What I've produced here some slides with various illustrations, and originally there was a load of text on them as well. But as Arthur's suggestion, I've taken the text off because he said people are very good at trying to read the text as I'm talking and not actually looking at the blue lines. So I've now got two versions, and the version you're going to see, with the exception of the first page, or the second page I should say, there's no text on there, so hopefully it'll help keep things focused. But the one that we'll send these out afterwards anyway, then there'll be the full texted version, so hopefully you should be able to understand what we're going on about. Okay. Now, when needing to, this is the only bit of text you'll see. I'm going to read this bit. When needing to learn a new method, there are many ringers who simply refer to a blue line and commit it to memory. Now, this in itself is not a bad thing, provided that the ringer can do this in a timely manner, has the brain capacity to keep inputting an ever-increasing number of blue lines. There are ringers who can do this with relative ease, but there are also many ringers who cannot. A huge number of methods are interconnected with one another in a variety of ways, a bit like the pieces in a jigsaw puzzle. As such, it is sometimes possible to ring a previously unknown method at very short notice by having the ability to make a few simple changes to an already known method, quite often whilst you're actually ringing it. Now, it's worth stressing here that whilst I've used some example methods in what follows, the intention is not to focus specifically on those methods, but I'm using them more to illustrate how they, and many other methods, can be easily altered and rung without the need to study a blue line. With the exception of plain Bob minimus, which begins the show, all the methods referred to are plain minor methods, which is more than sufficient for now. The same changes and adaptations can also be used when ringing treble bob, delight, and surprise methods. And I realised afterwards I should have also included doubles methods in there as well. But there's, you know, because they're all the same, there's not really the need to go there. So just by way of starting, I thought we'd start at the very, very bottom of plain Bob minimus as an example. Now, can I just be sure that even if you're not able to ring Bob minimus yet, you can at least understand what that illustration shows. The changing rows of the numbers and the lines through following the path of a particular bell. Are we all okay with that?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Right. Now, you can see the red path showing the work of the treble, and there's a blue line showing the work of the other three bells. And these three bells all do the same work, they just start in different places. This work, it's mostly plain hunting, except for the 3 points where the treble is leading. And just to demonstrate this, you've actually got 24 rows of a method there, or 24 changes. And it's only that row there, and that row there, and that row at the end when you're not plain hunting. So you've got 21 rows of plain hunting. And it's these points where bells 2, 3, and 4 will either be making seconds, as you can see there, dodging in 3, 4 down, as you can see there, or dodging in 3, 4 up. And the diagram on the right shows these in the correct order, moving clockwise around as indicated by the arrows. And it's this sequence of work which we learn when ringing some of these elementary methods. They're usually plain methods and the like, but we learn this circle of work and where to start. Okay, so if you're ringing the second, you'd start there, and the first piece of work you would do would be 3/4 down. You can see that there. I shan't go through the whole lot, but that's the second doing its 3/4 down dodge, and so on. It's worth adding as well that the ringers, we can either memorize that circle of work, or there's a lot of ringers who can actually just visualize that. And I, for one, if somebody said to me verbally, what's the work for Bob Minimus, although I would be reciting that in my head, I'd be visualizing that. There's not a right or a wrong way. People learn things in different ways. So it's a case of just finding what works for you. And that sort of theme carries on through this morning's talk as well. It's what works for you. Sometimes, you know, trying these different things out. So what I want to show next is not so much an alternative way of ringing Bob Minimus, although it can be construed as that, but it could also be a pointer which would assist in how to memorize Bob Minimus. Whoops, too far. Right, there we go. Now, what you see there is exactly the same line, the same graph for Bob Minimus, exactly the same order. But you'll see what I've done here is I've actually highlighted that little block of work there at the back, and that is shown here on the right. And you can see at the back here, the treble is just coming away from the back on its way down to the front again. And whether you like it or not, 6 rows later, it's going to appear at the back again. And the 6 rows you can see here, there's row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there it is. Okay. And it just so happens that leaves exactly the right amount of room for a bell to come to the back and do a lie and a 3/4 down dodge. Or alternatively, the opposite of that is to come and do a 3/4 up dodge at the back prior to lying and then down to the front. Due to the nature of this method, every time you go to the back, here and here, you're going to do one or two things. There's nothing else you can do. It's either one or the other. What can sometimes happen, though, is a novice ringer can sometimes panic. They'll be on the way to the back, and we all have memory problems occasionally, short-term or whatever, but sometimes in the heat of the moment, they're heading up to the back, and they have a panic, and they're thinking, do I do the dodge when I get to the back, or do I lie first? And when you look at it closely like this, you've actually got a Hobson's choice, as in you don't have a choice. If you were ringing the second, for example, here, when you get to the back, if you wanted to try and dodge there, who would your dodge bell be? Anyone?
The treble.
The treble, okay. But it's plain hunt method. The treble cannot and will not dodge, even if you bribe them. You shouldn't dodge. It's not their job to. So you can only do the only thing possible. That is to do the lie and wait in 4th place for another bell to come up to the back and join you and do the dodge. And they will then do the lie. So just keeping an eye out. This is where if you haven't necessarily learned, or you've tried to learn where to pass the treble, which is always ideal if you can, even if you're not able to, at least be aware of when you've passed the treble, and that will be a sort of a confirmation of whether you start by doing the lie or whether you start by doing the dodge. Now that's talking of it in terms of just assisting the conventional way of ringing it. But maybe if there's a struggle with that, it could be argued that, well, the rest of it's plain hunting. As long as I know which way I'm going, plain hunt bells, even bells go in, odd bells go out. It's possible to suggest that you might think, well, I'll tell you what, let's just ring it that way. It's a bit gung-ho, and I'm not necessarily recommending this. You at least need to know to a degree the sequence, but it's more a case of if you're in the heat of the moment and you forget which way round it is, you've got a little bit of a get out clause there. Okay. Any questions so far? Wow. Did a lousy job of that as well, because I've got a lovely script here and I'm not referring to it, so I'm going to try to. Moving on from that, this is single Oxford Bob Minor, and I think if you can look at the blue line straight away, you'll see this is a much less uniform method. But like plain bob, it is still a plain hunt method, and the treble is still just plain hunting. Up to the back, down to the front, up to the back, down to the front, and so on and so forth. You can learn this by committing the cycle of work to memory, or by visualizing it as a blue line. But this can also be run by using an already known blue line, and again by keeping an eye out for the treble. I've often wondered if it's possible to do this straight from the off, but this is one of those examples where it could, it could at least be beneficial to get a bit of decent rope sight experience on 6 bells before trying this. But surprisingly enough, the method that it's worth knowing to ring this is not a 6 bell method. It's actually that one, plain bob minimus. Because all this is a different way of extending the 4 bell method. And what I've done to try and help things, I've drawn 2 vertical lines down. I've never seen this done before, but I just thought it'd be worth doing just to show the difference. If you look to the left of that vertical line, you can see there's quite large chunks of things where nothing crosses the line. You can see there's nothing crosses that line. The treble comes off the back, and after that point, it's like a gate's being closed, so nobody can cross that line until the treble comes out again. So while that's going on, the bells around this area here have to just ring the 4 bell method, and that's exactly what they do. And if you see where this number 6, for example, there is coming in, goes to the lead, where it passes the treble there in 2, 3, it means that we then get to the lead end, and that bell does a 3/4 up dodge and then make 4ths before going in. Now that is exactly the same as what the 4th is doing there. It's passing the treble in 2, 3. It does a 3/4 up dodge. It makes 4ths, and it goes back into lead. Can we all see that?
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
Okay. And the same thing happens down here. And also, like in Bob Minimus, if the treble turns you from lead, you make seconds and lead again. If, however, 4th place is reached when hunting out and the treble has not yet been passed, so let's say you've got down to here, if you're down towards the bottom here. So you're hunting out and you've got to 4th place, the 6th there is still in 4th place, and they've still not passed the treble. Well, quite simply, just keep going to the back. And as you can see there, in that particular instance there, the 6th is doing 3 full dodges, and it's doing a dodge with a bell which is doing a 3/4 down dodge. Now again, for this little bit here, we're going to technically refer back to what we just did with the plain Bob Minimus. And I've taken this, I've done another cutout here of the chunk of work at the back. So again, you've got this point where the treble is coming off the back. And there you see the treble come back in again. And this time it is 10 blows later. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that gives you just enough room for a bell to lie there and do 3 dodges. Or the alternative, the bell to come in and do 3 dodges also the other way before doing a lie and coming in. It's worth just adding in, I know some of you will know this anyway, but if you see any blue lines where there's a triple dodge like that, bear in mind, I keep hitting the mouse by the way, I'm sorry about that. Bear in mind, if you see a line where there's a bell doing a triple dodge, there is another bell doing a triple dodge with it. You can't do the first dodge with one bell, the second dodge with another, and the third dodge with another bell. It doesn't work. It's impossible to do. So that tells you something, okay? And in just the same way with the Bob Minimus, as I was saying, if you get to the back and the treble is still there, so let's look at the fourth here. If the fourth was going to the back and in a bit of a panic, we all do it, and thinking, oh heck, do I start with a dodge or do I start with a lie? Again, you'll see the treble is there. So once again, they can't dodge with the treble. So it has to be, you start with a lie and then do the 3-pull dodge. Now, another thing that can happen while you're doing this is you might suddenly get to about here and think, heck, how many dodges have I done? And you start panicking. But if you look very carefully, every time you pull into 5th place, you know, you're developing rope sight now. You should be getting to the point of being able to see who's in front of you. And as you do the 3rd dodge, you've lost count, it doesn't matter, but you suddenly find yourself pulling into 5th place. Look who's in front of you. Can you see that? Yeah. What's that? What's the treble going to want to do? Want to carry on out. So there's only one thing you can do, and that's to keep coming forward and carry on with the rest of the method. Any questions on that so far? I can't believe I'm doing that, Will. Somebody try and trip me up. What happens next? Let's have a look. I couldn't get away with including Basto minor and little Bob minor, and we have actually just dipped our big toe in the water with a bit of treble Bob minor here as well, but I'll come to that in a minute.
Phil, can I ask a really basic question? I presume it's Stella, sorry.
Yeah, I can see.
I presume that thing about the treble is only specific to certain methods, or is that a general universal principle?
Well, if it's a plain hunt method, then you're going one way, and the treble, you're going to cross the treble because the treble's going in the opposite direction. If you get in the way, the treble's going to hit you, or you'll cause a clash or whatever. So it's no good for using that last example there. If I just go back one, look at where I was pointing to the 4th coming off the back. Is that the sort of an area you were talking about?
I mean, when you get to the back, you know, when you're coming up and you say you're not sure whether you're going to do an up or a down, lie first or whatever, if you pass the treble at that point, you're going to be lying because you can't dodge.
Exactly.
I suppose I'm trying to work out whether there are loads of methods that doesn't apply to.
Well, I should have said, actually, you will come across quite a few plain minor methods where at the back like this, and sometimes at the front as well, we'll come to one a bit later on, all you're doing is a triple dodge. And that's worth clocking, because it means if you see that, it tells you straight away there's only 2 bells in those places. It's another general rule to put it, to sort of input into the brain, as it were. If you've got a method you're going to ring, if you know you're not doing a triple dodge at the back, then you can't be there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You will know when you've got out there, right, this is the 3 dodge work. Have I answered that very well?
So yes, thank you.
Okay, we'll touch on that again a little bit later on, because this will keep coming back to haunt us. Right, now then, despite the initial complicated looking line to Basto, that's on the far left, it forms the basis of treble bob hunting as opposed to plain hunting. Now, what is actually there is 2 plain courses, which I've done for a reason, which I'll come to a bit later on. Whereas with plain hunting, the idea is to pass every bell once when moving from the front to the back, and vice versa, going the other way. Basto can be learnt as a blue line, as can any method. But basically, it's a simple case of 3 places forward and 1 place back, repeated, or the other way. And in the case of Basto, the only other rule to remember is not to dodge in 1, 2 places. So if I can just illustrate that, let's just starting where the 6 is on the front there. Having done the lead, I was saying it was 3 paces one way and 1 back. So we go 1, 2, 3 paces, 1 pace back. Same again, 1, 2, 3, 1 pace back. Now, I know you're thinking, oh yeah, but what happens next? Well, you're still plain hunting. So 1, 2, 3, that is still plain hunting. So you've gone your 3 places. And my mouse keeps cutting out. 1, 1 back. 1, 2, 3, 1 back. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I'm at the front, so I've got a lead. And that's basically all that is. And I've mentioned about plain hunting, as you see, for example, in the little bob there. That's the treble going up and down in straight lines. That is almost what we call treble bob hunting. It is a different form of hunting. It's a repeated pattern. You do get that in methods. Now, why have I put that next to little bob? Oh, I should have said with Basto as well, if you ring that on higher numbers, basically when you get to 5, 6, you just keep going out to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, however many bells you've got. Although you do need a much higher level of rope sight to do that. So producing the line's easy enough, but that doesn't mean to say it's necessarily easy to ring. Now this method in the center is little bob minor, half of which is identical to Basto, which is why I wrote out the 2 courses of Basto. Now this can be seen if we look at the lower half of both lines. So if you can see where the 6 is on the back there, it's doing what's called a treble bob on the back, just exactly as it's doing in the Basto there. And then it comes to do a 3/4 down dodge, exactly as it has in Basto. It goes to the front and does a lead, same again. It does a 3/4 going up, like that, and comes to the back and does another treble bob on the back. So all that lot is the same on both lines. So if you can ring Basto, you can certainly ring half a course a little bob. Okay? Now if we go back to the top half of the method where it starts, thinking about where we pass the treble and things like that, you could be ringing the tenor, for example, or be 6th place belly, you know, whichever way you look at it. And you think, right, okay, let's go down, because the next thing you've got to do is a 3/4 down dodge. Okay, so here we are in the 3/4 down position. Now, Stella, I hope you're watching this. What's the problem with trying to do a 3/4 down dodge there?
The treble.
Your dodge bell would be the treble. And as I've mentioned a few times previously already, if it's a plain method, the treble cannot dodge. So you do the only thing you can and just keep on plain hunting through. It's as simple as that. Okay? So even though you've got it in your mind that you might need to do a 3/4 dodge, just keep an open mind on it. The treble's there, I can't, so keep going. You find yourself leading on the front, and just like playing bob, it's a 2nd place method. So if the treble turns you from lead, you make 2nd and lead again. Then you'll find the same thing happens again going out. You might be thinking, oh, do I do a 3/4 up on the way out or not? Can't remember. And you find yourself hunting out, you get to 3rd place, you look around for your dodge bell, it's the treble, oops, can't do that, and then you just carry on. But then you're into the Basto rule from that point onwards. And I think I'm right in saying there's a huge number of people ring little bob that way. I don't know anybody who could quote you place bell start. I'm sure there are, I'm not saying there isn't anybody, but it's not the question that gets asked. What's my start? Any questions on that so far? You're being too kind. I did just mention treble bob minor for a reason. I said when we were discussing Basto how this line here is almost treble bob hunting. Here you see just one lead of a surprise minor method. I think it's Annabelle's London. I can't honestly remember. I just grabbed one and stuck it up there because we're not interested in this blue line. I said no interest to us here at all. All we're interested in is the red line of the treble. And that treble is doing what we call treble bob hunting, which is the other type of work a treble does in methods. 99.99% of methods, the treble is going to be either plain hunting, like that, or it's going to be treble bob hunting, like that. And if you can see, looking across to the basto line, or the bottom half of little bob, that treble is doing exactly what you do in basto, except when you get to the front, down here, it also does a dodge, does the lead, and then does a dodge afterwards. So quite simply, you're dodging 1, 2, you're dodging 3, 4, you're dodging 5, 6, and so on. And that's quite handy because even if you can't necessarily ring surprise, delight, or whatever methods, at least if someone says catch all for Cambridge or Kent treble bob or stuff like that, at least you can think, you know what, I can ring the treble to this. So a handy little thing to know. Okay, any questions on that slide?
Phil, do you think that people are able to hear when the treble is leading, or see it? I don't now remember whether when I was first learning things like Little Bob and Kent, etc., whether I could hear the treble leading or not. Now, of course, I do, and that's how I do it. But I'd be interested to know whether ringers learning these methods now would know to dodge when the treble's leading because they see it lead, or could watch another bell as well as themselves, or could
exactly. I don't make a big deal of that because I don't remember being able to see or hear when the treble was leading. My mind was too full of other things. Usually what was just going on around me.
People for a show of hands. We've got plenty of people.
Yeah.
Which way? Show of hands on what?
Yeah, you've got a little click box at the bottom, haven't you, I think?
I certainly have to see it. I still can't hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is where we're getting into the realms of
hand up if you can hear the treble lead.
It obviously helps if you can. I'm not sure if I could hear it when I was learning.
No, I certainly could.
Give you a sense of comfort.
I'm still not sure I can hear it all the time now. I mean, if I'm near the front, and I can usually hear it. But if I'm at the other end of the change from the treble, I'm never quite sure. Especially if the treble is close with, say, the 2 or the 3. Obviously, if the treble's on the front with the tenor, it's easy to tell them apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions then?
Phil, yeah, I never hear or see the treble leading, and that doesn't seem to be an obstacle to me at the moment as far as ringing is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Anticipate that it's a problem as I begin calling. So my interest is more from that point of view. Any thoughts?
I think from the calling point of view, you see, this is, again, there are some methods you can call without necessarily needing to know when the lead end is. It's more a case of putting the call in relative to where the treble is or where you pass the treble. I mean, I still, to this day, when I'm calling touches or grounds or doubles, if I'm going to call myself to do a double dodge in 4/5 up, I'll just put a bob in as I'm passing the treble on the way out. And that's how I learned to do it, and that's still what goes on in my brain 40-something years later.
Well, that's something that I did. That's how I call things, or it started by calling things, was knowing what I had to do and calling the bob accordingly. But then that actually in turn helps you to hear and see where the treble is, because if you know the point at which you're calling and then going to make that dodge, you can, once you're a bit more relaxed about that and know you're putting it in the right place, you can then consciously make yourself think, well, can I hear the treble, and listen for it.
And I think also just one example where you can start looking for these things is if you say conducting simple touches of Little Bob, there are 2 points on the back where you treble bob in 5/6 up and down, and the one time you do it, the up dodge is the home and the down dodge is the wrong, and the other time it's the other way round. So you might be thinking, well, no, I need to put a bob in, but is it the up dodge or the down? Well, by the time you get to do that 5/6 position, you should be able to see, or it's a good idea to try and see, is the treble heading to the front, or is he about to make fourths? And if he's about to make fourths, clearly you don't want to put the bob in there. So you'll think, okay, I'll do the 5/6 up. The 5/6 down must be the call position. But that's just a suggestion to try and sort of get you to start looking around and seeing where the treble is, to help you put the calls in the right place, if I've said that the right way. Has that helped? And you can't say no. Okay.
Sure it will.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Sorry, we're going to ask a question, Elaine, sorry.
No.
Sorry, I thought you were going to ask a question. Right,
No.
okay. Let's move on. Now then, I was going to write a slide about St Clement's Bob Minor, simply because it seems to be the go-to method for people who have just grasped plain Bob Minor. But I personally, and I don't want to start bringing my opinions into this, but personally, I've never understood why, because it's just a bit of a messy method. And I think, just a bit of a backup, I did actually email Tony and say, what can you say about St Clement's? And he said the same thing. Well, why would you bother? But just to draw one little piece of information about the line, that St Clement's is the one at the top. There's five leads there. The one thing you might notice, if you remember going back to single Oxford, we had that method with the triple dodging at the back. And if you look at the St Clement's, you can see exactly the same thing going on at the front, in the second and third. So again, the same sorts of rules apply when you're coming down to the front. If you're not sure, if you suddenly pass the treble in 2/3 there, think, all right, okay, that's like your sort of gateway to doing all this work on the front. But that's all I really want to say about St Clement's in terms of the method itself. There isn't really any other easy way of doing it. The dodgers at the lead end, they're exactly the same as plain Bob dodgers, but they're actually in the reverse order, which just complicates the learning of the whole thing. But if people want to learn it, then fair enough. Now then, the reason it is here, though, is if you look at the lead end, it is exactly the same as plain Bob. Look at this first lead end here. It's exactly the same as plain Bob in that a bell is making seconds, 2 bells are dodging in 3/4 up and down, and 2 bells are dodging in 5/6 up and down. And that's quite common in lots of methods. Even Cambridge is a seconds place method. A bell makes seconds, and then bells dodging 3/4 and 5/6 down the line. It's not uncommon. You get that a lot. And as your method bank grows, or your ability to do this sort of stuff grows, you should at least start getting to know, hence Keith's question to a degree, that yes, you're at the lead end. There must be a lead end dodge if you know you're ringing a seconds place method. But you don't have to make seconds. You can open up the world to, you can sort of double your method repertoire by being able to do something here from the top of your head. Now, if you look at the method below, which is College Bob Minor, can you see any similarities between those blue lines there and the blue lines in St Clement's above?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They are actually all the same, almost all the same. They're just in a different order. And the reason that's happened is because if we look at the bottom left there, you can see that a bell is not making seconds. The place is made at the back. You see number 3 making a place at the back there. So what that means is there is no dodging at that lead end. It is what's called a plain hunt lead end or a far place lead end. You simply plain hunt through the lead end. So what it means, and you can see the line for the 6 there and the line for the 6 there. The first 11 rows are exactly the same, right down to that point there. It's exactly the same. And as long as you think to yourself when you're coming down, there's a 3/4 down dodge. But we're ringing College Bob. Don't dodge. So you just plain hunt straight in and become seconds place bell. And then all you have to do is think seconds place bell, St Clement's. And there you go. And if you look at all these lead end rows here, 1, 4, 2, 6, 3, 5, you'll find that is also here, but it's just in a different place. It's there. So in fact, by the time you've rung College Bob Minor and got to the end here, by the time you've got to the end here, you've rung exactly the same rows and all the same music, just not quite in the same order. So there you go. So that's a means of taking one method, and as long as you know it well enough, and I'm trying to choose words carefully, you don't necessarily have to religiously know the blue line and be able to recite it off pat, but as long as you can ring St Clement's Minor confidently and you know the starts, then with a bit of practice you should be able to think, right, let's go and ring College Bob Minor without having to slog over the line and learn the new lead end orders and things like that. Any questions? I'm just waiting for the onslaught at the very end. Lead end, half lead and double methods. Wow, that's getting a bit of fun now. It's good. It's always good to learn where the lead end is. Okay, that backstroke of the treble lead. Okay, when things aren't going right, which does happen from time to time, and you suddenly find you've got 6 ropes going up and down at the same time, you will often hear the conductor say, "This is the lead end at backstroke." So at least it helps to at least know where you should be, even if you aren't there. So do try and become familiar with things like lead ends. And of course, that was also illustrated in the previous slide as well. Know when you're coming up to that position. Is that the point where you need to do something different? Equally, particularly as methods become more complicated, it's also good to know where the half lead is, which is the backstroke of the treble in 6th place. And I'm a little bit surprised that, you know, this isn't talked about more. But whereas the treble at the front, that backstroke is the lead end, the halfway point between there and there, you'll find the treble is doing a backstroke in 6th place. Whoops. And this particular method, which I'll come back to in a minute, like Plain Bob, it has seconds being made over the treble and 3, 4 and 5, 6 dodges. If you see here, it also has a bell making 5ths in front of the treble, thus creating a 3, 4 dodge and a 1, 2 dodge. So this is one of those sort of methods where you might hear the conductor yelling, "This is the half lead at backstroke." So it's good to know if you can get that into your head. Also, lead ends and half leads, they're quite often points in a method where the blue line goes from one piece of work to another. As you can sort of see here, there's a bell doing this work in 3, 4. It doesn't matter what it is, but it finishes with a dodge, which is a half lead dodge, and then it goes off and does something else. So again, even if you're not sure, if you've got it into your head that this particular method has got 5ths at the half lead, then again, that can be a great help. Going back to what Simon was saying, of course, that's, you know, if you can hear when the treble is at the back. But these are all skills which you can build and develop.
The thing that makes the half lead more difficult to use, of course, is if you're aligned to hear the treble leading in order to dodge,
yeah.
At least the treble leads before you have to do the dodge. The problem with waiting for the treble to lie is by the time you've heard it, you've missed it.
You've missed it. That's right.
You've got to see it coming, and that really is quite hard.
That's right. That's right. It's a different skill, but it's something worth. But you can practice this sort of stuff even with Bob Minimus. You can flip. You know, you can do things with that. Okay. The method shown here, by the way. Anybody know what it is? I know Tony and Simon do, and Claire. Anyone else?
Double Oxford.
Double Oxford. Yeah, it is double Oxford, or at least half of it. And for what it's worth, it doesn't matter that it doesn't start from rounds, because, as I say, it's purely the lines that we're really interested in. Now, some parts of the blue line may be familiar to you, because you may remember we were looking at this triple dodging at the back, which we did with, remember the name of the first method we looked at after Plain Bob? It was single Oxford. And this is double Oxford. Now, there's also a clue in the name. This is what double methods are. Whatever you do at the back, you do on the front. So again, this is another thing which, when you're trying to pick up a new method, you can start, even if you're not sure of the method, you think, well, it's double Oxford. If it was single Oxford, I'd be dodging on the back, so I must do it on the front, if you're in that region. I wouldn't advocate trying to learn this. I know people that can do it, but they can learn this by flipping single Oxford in their head once they've passed that treble point. It's not always that easy, but it can be a guide and give you some helpful tips as to what you might be doing when you're in various places. Now, sometimes with methods, I'm not talking about avoiding learning blue lines. It's a case of sometimes there's other things you can do to accompany the blue line learning, substitute. But this is one little trick which I've certainly done all my life. And again, if you can adapt this can still save some time. But if you have to learn the blue line, it isn't always necessary to learn all 5 leads, which is if you're ringing a 6-bar method. You'll see there, I've only written 2.5 leads of the method. And when I'm learning, or if I was learning this, for example, I'd think, right, that's my start for the 2nd, coming down, that's the start for the 3rd, and that's the start for the 6th, sorry, for the 5th. And when I get to this point, I basically turn around and I go back up the line. So when I get to that point there, that is the start for the 6th, but going up the line. And from there to 4th, then back to 2nd place. It's usually more common. It's usually more common that people have the ability to visualize the line in their head. Who can do that? But again, it's something that you might not have thought about, and it can make life so much easier. Any questions on any of that? This is going too good to be true. Reverse methods.
Either that or we're all lost.
Sorry?
Either that or we're all lost.
Have a guess what reverse methods are.
Well, there should have been some questions then.
Reverse method, when you go out instead of in to start with, so the odd bells go in.
Sorry, what was that again?
Is it to do with the direction that the bell goes to start with? So instead of odd bells going out, they go in?
No, but that's a good guess. That's actually a good thought, but no, it's not. If you look at this, if you look at the start of plain bob, it's still odd bells out, even bells in. And in reverse bob, it's exactly the same. The difference is, do you remember in the previous slide, we were talking about lead ends and half leads?
Yeah.
Well, if you take plain bob as a very simple example, where all the fun and games happens at the lead end, remember the rest of it's just plain hunting. That's the only point you get to it, have any fun, make seconds and dodges. With reverse bob, it happens at the half lead. And by the time you get down to the lead end, it is purely plain hunting. And again, I put that line down the page. If you were to put a mirror on that line, it doesn't matter which way round, but I've positioned that half lead at the same point as that lead end. So you can see that line is a perfect reflection of that. You might not come across many reverse methods. Plain bob, I think, is the only one I've run at any length, and even then usually in spliced and things like that. But the simplicity of these sort of methods, reverse bob is one of those things. It's worth trying to ring without looking at the line, because you actually know the line, but you just know it backwards. I have rung reverse Cambridge and a few other bits and pieces, and again, that's just more for fun. But at least if people talk about reverse methods, at least you know what it means. There is one method that is run quite a bit, actually, and of course that's reverse Canterbury in doubles. The original method was the other way around. I've never known it to be. I've never rung it, but it's just found that when it was reversed, it's actually a more fun method than when it's forward. So it's just, if ever you wonder why reverse Canterbury is called reverse Canterbury, now you know it is a reverse method. Okay. Have I think I've just about summed up in terms of the methods and things like that. What slide are we on? Yeah, I think just by way of a sort of summary, in terms of being able to ring more methods, bell ringing, it's not about learning blue lines ad infinitum. Although, as I mentioned earlier, there are some ringers who are able, to do it and prefer it that way. But it's more about seeing the connections between certain methods and taking full advantage of that in order to be able to ring them more easily. So next time a new method needs to be learnt for whatever reason, here's just a few things to think about. And again, don't forget, you'll be getting this script sent over if you wish. But, by all means, look at the blue line, but pause for a while before trying to learn it and think, does it look like any other method you already know? Even if it's just one place bell, because that could be a good clue to what else is in there. Do any bits of it look like the bits you've seen in other methods you know? Is it a seconds place method or a far place method? Is it a reverse method or a double method? And I will add just a double method, not to be confused with doubles methods. The double method is one that looks the same front and back. In fact, actually, that's one thing I might just quickly come back to. Yes, if you look at that double method, that double Oxford, if you were to stick a compass point in the middle and swing the thing round, it would look exactly the same. It doesn't make a scrap of difference one way or the other. Top and bottom, left and right. But if you're thinking you might like to try ringing some new methods in this way, maybe start by ringing a plain quarter bob minimus and then try ringing reverse bob minimus, double bob minimus. You may surprise yourself, so give it a go. That's where I've almost run out of material. I'm just going to put that up. That was purely if there weren't any questions. That what I've just put on the screen there could just be a point of discussion if people want to chat about it. But are there any general questions first? I can't believe it's been that good.
Sorry, but my internet went down, so I wasn't seeing anything for most of that. But it was very useful to hear it.
Yeah, well, we'll send the details over to you.
I couldn't get any pictures at all. It just went.
Well, you will do. Don't worry. You will.
Thank you. But very good otherwise. Good description.
Phil, if you're happy, we'll upload the script and the PowerPoint to the Guild website. I'll put the link in the chat box.
Yes, please do. Please do. So as I mentioned earlier, my details are on the front page if anyone wants to email me with any questions as well.
The on question for everybody actually. On Wednesday, I'm due to give a webinar on what could have been quite a similar subject, but it doesn't need to be. And I'm just thinking what aspects of this.
I didn't hear half of that.
On Wednesday,
yeah.
I'm giving a webinar on what could be quite a similar subject, but it doesn't need to be. I'm just wondering what aspects of this could be taken further or done again or explained in a different way. I was wondering, for instance, if a session on what bobs and singles are about and how they're used and what they're really for instance.
Yes, that would be quite useful.
Yes, I'm not quite sure what singles are. And
yeah, maybe
I'm trying to get my head around it.
Look at the effect of them in different methods and go on about that, because I could do that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Okay, I'll work on that.
Okay, so so Phil, can we unshare screen now?
Yeah, sure. Do I just? Oops, is that gone?
Yeah, it's gone. Unless there's anything else you want to add to it. We can all see who's looking puzzled and who isn't now.
I would at least like to think once people have had the notes sent through and just taken 5 or 10 minutes to read through and cross-reference the lines, it should all become quite clear.
Yes,
it's lots of individual bits and pieces. That's the thing, and you can't accumulate that sort of thing overnight. It takes time.
As Arthur said, these are being recorded, and Mark is being really good about putting the resources up onto the Guild website for people to look at later. And there's also quite a lot of stuff going on with art and Central Council. Lots of resources are being created, so we will do our best to be keeping you up to date about that. Talking of which, a couple of weeks ago I did a session on how to get started using Able. Well, there's now a video has come out done by Roger Booth of Art, and I think there's a link to that on our website. Mark's put that up. So that's up now, and Roger is actually producing a series of short videos about how to use Able. So right from the very start up to more advanced sort of. So look out for those resources, and of course just ask if you got any questions about where can I find something. Email into the guild officers if you can't find stuff, or email people like Phil, Tony, Simon, and I'm sure we'll be able to point you in that direction. Unless anybody's got any other questions on today's presentation, anybody?
No. Would learning by sound as well be a good thing? Because since I've been using Able on my phone to practice plain hunting, I've noticed that you can hear that rhythm, and I've been tending to hear the rhythm more than looking at the other ropes.
Yeah, well, that's brilliant, and I think it's easier on Able to do it that way. I mean, that's what it's designed for, really, rather than you're not really. Well, I would say it makes it harder if you're trying to do it by rope sight on Able. So developing those listening skills are brilliant, but bearing in mind that ringing is a combination of listening, looking, and a sort of internal rhythm. So it's the best ringers have got all three things in sort of equal parts. And one of the problems that people have with actually striking is because we're in general, most people are very visual about what they do, and learning to ring is a very visual thing. Whether you whether you believe in the sort of styles of learning, the visual, audio, kinesthetic, which has to a certain degree been discredited now, but you can't deny that actually learning to ring in the first place is an incredibly visual thing, because you can't, you're given a demonstration as to what you've got to do, and then you have to then you copy it and you practice it. And so right from the very beginning, it's heavy on the visual aspect and not so heavy on the listening aspect. And all of a sudden it comes as a shock to quite a lot of people that all of a sudden they've got to suddenly develop their listening their listening capability a lot more. And when you start to become uncomfortable with something, or you're pushing your boundaries and pushing to do something, the first thing to go is probably going to be listening, because you're desperately looking around for the rope, right, to keep yourself oriented in the method, and as you ring, some things have to go sometimes, and it's often you've got to consciously make sure that as you get improve with the method, navigating your way around the method, that the listening comes back in to make sure that you get it right and it improves.
I mean, it's probably going to be more visual when we actually get back in the tower, but for now, I think listening is probably a good skill to develop. Do you think?
Definitely, yes, because hopefully it will help you when you get back in the tower. It might actually make, it's easier to learn to be ringing the method in the first place, because you've got such a good sort of hook on it with the listening. You sort of know what it sounds like, but listening. But if you've developed an ability to listen for your bell in a row, whilst we've not been ringing, then that will be brilliant, because it will apply. It'll apply when we get back, of course.
One of the things that we've been doing, ringing handbells, Rose and I have been ringing Bob Minimus and reverse Bob Minimus on handbells. Now, in a plain course of Bob Minimus or reverse Bob Minimus, you've only got 24 changes. We can actually sing the entire course now. We now know if we've gone wrong because the music is wrong. We know the music because it's only 24 changes. We've learned that just from ringing the handbells, which is, perhaps a bit more difficult to learn the music for something that's longer, but for 24 changes, it's quite possible. And it's quite probable if you're ringing plain hunt on 6, that's 12 changes. So you've probably learnt the music by now. Yeah.
So who's up for ringing some plain bob on handbells now in ringing room?
Me. Some join ringing room.
Daniel's in. Okay, who else is in? Daniel's coming.
I'm coming in. Sorry about my phone.
So, well, before we go, I just want to take this opportunity, first of all, to thank Phil for a really interesting and informative presentation. There were aspects of that presentation that...
I'm in ringing room now.
Okay, Susan, I'll contact you separately.
There are aspects of that presentation that I wouldn't necessarily have been able to sort of think of myself, and I think you sort of pointed out to me a lot of the ways that I actually ring without knowing about it. Also,
yeah, we all do it.
Yeah, so that was great. And I'm just going to do a shameless plug for the Guild Bake Off now. Whilst we've got a captured audience of at least 35 people, I'm sure are aware of the Guild Bake Off, but if you're not, in a minute I'm going to play you a trailer for it. So I would encourage people to get. We've had a few entries already, but there's 35 people on this attending this Zoom, and I'd say we haven't had 35 entries, but we've had a smattering of entries, which is great. This is the last weekend before. Well, I got next weekend as well. We've got 1 week left before entries close and voting opens. So now's the time to get baking. And we're raising money for the Solihull Marie Curie Hospice. It's unusual for the Guild to raise money for non-ringing charities, shall we say, or not in-house type fundraising. But in this instance, we felt that that it wasn't necessarily appropriate. We don't particularly need a sort of fundraising boost for our BRF, and we've decided that we're going to raise money for a charity, an external charity, because charities are struggling as a lot of their income streams have disappeared. Like lots of people get sponsored to run the London Marathon, which they're not going to do now, and a lot of all charity shops have had to close for the moment. So yes, so get baking. If you need to know how to enter, there's information. We'll be sending out a reminder email, and there's information on the Guild Facebook page and the Bake Off event of how to actually enter your bake. So I am going to play you the trailer now. So I suppose if you find out, then
it's a brilliant trailer, by the way.
I saw it with my dad on Facebook.
Oh, good. Well, I'm wondering if it's going to work. So, okay, let's see. Hasn't. Let's see. Okay, so it's taking a little time because I obviously didn't set it up properly on my laptop, so I've got to allow my computer to share it.
While you're playing that,
yes,
I've gone back because there's a lack of flour. I've gone back to some of my Slimming World recipes and found recipes without the use of flour.
Yes, you can see.
Yeah. Yes.
One of them using butter beans.
Ooh.
Yeah. Butter beans,
Yeah.
quark, egg, and fruit and sweetener.
So I was struggle to bake with flour, Jane, let alone without.
It tastes all right. I put some options white chocolate in it as well.
No, that sounds good. If the white chocolate survives. Thanks ever so much, Phil. Well done.
Well, it's probably been a real pleasure. Thanks for being so receptive, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Right, it doesn't look like this is going to happen. So unfortunately, I didn't set my laptop security up properly to be able to share the screen. Wait a minute, I might be able to do it. It's just a bit slow, my laptop. So
You can always send us a link afterwards.
it's on the.
We've already got it. I've seen it twice.
Right.
Where was that?
Let's have a look. See when we got it now. Yes. Here we go. Get ready.
3, 2, Fresh. Zero.
Did it come up?
Just got an orangey screen.
It has an orange with a D at like over there.
Yeah, I'll just find
I
it.
hope it will work.
Here we go.
Now we can only see you.
We can only see you.
Can I suggest we stop recording as well? I don't think this needs to be on the recording, does it?
Yeah, it's not. I don't think we are recording, are we?
There's recording.
Right,
Yeah.
It said St. Martin's Guild is sharing your computer sound.
Oh, yes, that's right. Okay, I'll stop my recording. Okay.